Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Sligo Show. As many of you who have been watching us the last number of years know, this is a voluntary project between myself and Brian, and from time to time people come in here and they want their story told and they pay us for our time, and it's brilliant that they're supporting our project here. And tonight we have a very special guest. We have Councillor Michael Clarke. Michael, you're very welcome to the Sligo Show.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in. Thanks for supporting our show to help us tell your story.
You have a fantastic setup here. It's beautiful.
It's not bad. Now, the man behind the camera did all that. I just walk in and walk out. I'm completely useless when it comes to the tech and all the fancy bits behind the scenes. So for people that don't know you, Michael, well, firstly, you are running in the upcoming general election. So exciting times ahead. So people that will see your face now for the next few weeks or months, if they don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background, growing up, family, stuff like that.
Well, Michael Clarke is my name, and I'll be a candidate in this general election for Independent Ireland in the Sligo, Leitrim and South Donegal constituency. And politics has been in my household all my life.
Okay.
My father worked on the farm. He was 6'4", 20 stone, pure muscle,
good full back
man, fantastic man. And he was a great care of the land. Loved animals. At a very young age, he taught me how to speak to animals, and animals would speak back to us.
All right.
And he explained it in a very simple way, that it's like a young mother talking to her baby, and the mother knows when there's something wrong with the baby. So we got to know at a very early age how to care for animals, and when they were sick, we know they were sick. When they're hungry, they know they're sick. So we were very close to nature, and we had always total respect for the animals. My mother, on the other hand, she was Kieran's. She was a national camogie player. She played for Sligo, and she was an aunt of Mickey Kieran's, the great GAA footballer.
Yes, legend.
And indeed, my father, sister, she was Annie Clarke, and she was Ray McSharry's mother. So politics was always there.
Deep in the veins, so.
Deep in the veins.
And it goes back to history as well, I think you were
back, yeah, we back in back to the foundation of the state. Linda Cairns was there in the GPO, and she was a nurse, and she done fantastic work for an awful lot of projects. Indeed, nice. She was the first lady that brought an export license to Sligo Harbour to export cattle. When she was
more back to the agricultural roots.
It's really all agriculture back to the generations. And I'm the youngest brother of 6, and we lost a brother during infancy, and I have 3 sisters. So we were a big house, and my mother and father farmed on the house in the land that I farm on now. It's a hill farm on the slopes of the Ox Mountains, and how they reared a family of 10 with no other income was very surprising to me. But there was a lot of love. We were never hungry, and it was a great childhood.
Okay, so you're definitely steeped in politics and steeped in farming. So,
born into farming, but we were always, well enough educated. And my mother was the driver. She'd make us get out to work, get out to school, got us dressed, and we always had great respect for other people. And our house was a house that people would come to and have tea and everything else. So it was a rambling house back in the day.
And when was your first kind of journey into politics? What poked you into that, or what led you into?
Well, our house was always politics. We were all. My mother was pure mad politics altogether. Okay. My father was a little bit cooler. He didn't get into it much, but she always encouraged me. That I remember meeting Bertie Ahern one time, and my mother was with me, and she says to me, "You're a fair better looking man than Bertie Ahern. You should think about politics." So it was always there, and we were always the type of family that were always helping people and encouraging people, and everybody would have our support at all times, and that continued on. And we suppose I drifted into politics because I bought a pub then in Drumore West, and for 50 years there was never a councillor in the Drumore West area. 50 years.
Wow.
So I was young enough at the time, and they said, would I go? And I took the first seat on the first occasion running that time. So
straight in
and straight into the deep water. And politics doesn't suit everybody, because it's a high pressure job, because you do let down people and you do help people, and it's something that you have to take. I heard Warren Buffett saying one time that if you find a job that you do for nothing and get paid for it, you're a very lucky man. And that's me. I love the politics.
Yeah.
I love helping people, and I love working with officials and people like that to deliver stuff. So
Okay, to move on. So how many years have you been involved?
So I'm in my 4th term. I was returning on 4 occasions. Either taking
You must be doing something right, so to keep returning.
Well,
proof's in the pudding.
I just don't know. I listen. I don't. I listen to good advice, and I work with colleagues. I would never hang a colleague out to dry, regardless what political party they were. I would encourage them, and if they were going wrong, I'd probably say it. Not in a debate, but I don't think you were right today.
Yeah.
I'd say you should have another rethink of that.
Okay.
And I have gained a lot of respect from all political parties and none in relation to that. You know, I'm not a man that wants to embarrass anybody and never will.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen them all come and go, doing it the right way, doing it the wrong way.
I often see colleagues on a daily basis trying to get one up on someone else.
Yeah.
And I often says to me that I tell them afterwards that won't work for you. You're better work with people than work against them.
Yeah. There's always a better solution.
Yeah.
So you're running with Independent Ireland.
Yes.
Like, what's their policy? Does it line up with you? Like, obviously it does if you're joining in with them.
Well, this last 15 or 20 years, I would be an admirer of Michael Fitzmaurice, you know, in Roscommon, and he has approached me a number of times.
Okay.
Before the local elections, he asked me to run as an Independent Ireland for the council, and I declined. And he spoke to me after my success, and he said, get on the train now because the train is leaving. You're either going to be in or out. Okay. And he's a man that doesn't take fools too easily. So,
no.
And anything that he has ever worked on, I've always kept in touch with him, and he's a good advisor, and he would ring me for my opinion, an odd time as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, his politics and his policies are my policies. There's no issue there, you know.
Like, if I didn't know anything about Independent Ireland, like, could you give me 3 or 4 things, like what's the key backbone of their ideals? Or
yeah, well, the key to Independent Ireland is common sense.
That's a good start.
No rubbish. You know, what can be delivered, we'll work to deliver it. We have policies on all sectors. So the policy documents are there on public knowledge. Anyone can check them out. And, you know, we're there to get into power. We want to be in power.
Yeah.
We believe that, you know, as an independent, you could go to the Dáil and you could sit up and crow all day and cock-a-doodle-doo or whatever, but you deliver nothing. Okay. I think working in collaboration with like-minded people, as I said, even in the Sligo County Council, where I work with Joe Queenan and Marie Casserly and Nessa Cosgrove, as a loose arrangement, we have an agreement to vote for the budget, and it'll be no different in Independent Ireland. There's no whip, but we will. I was
going to say, yeah, because then people go, well, if you join them, you're losing your own autonomy. Like, but
no, there's no whip, but like it's common sense policies, and you know, we want to deliver for our people that we represent. You know, we want, like, as we've seen here for the last 20 years, we have seen the closure of shops, post offices, you know, Garda barracks. We've seen the removal of the cancer service from Sligo. You know, we definitely, as an Independent Ireland group, we don't want to see any services leaving rural Ireland. And when I speak about rural Ireland, I'm not talking about
just the farm and
outside Sligo town.
Yeah.
Everything outside Dublin, Limerick and Cork, in my eyes, is rural. I don't think there's a street in Sligo that hasn't a relation that was born, or somebody in that street that was born outside in a rural area. Yeah. But it is all rural. And the people of Sligo town gets great support from the rural area around it, you know. So
of course, yeah.
It's all connected.
So some people might think this is all agriculture and farm, but it's not.
It's not.
We're all rural Ireland, kind of west of the pale, almost.
And I would be very well respected for my social agenda in relation to looking after people that are either handicapped or that has disabilities or mental illness, and our housing need. I would be, you know. Some of my colleagues, we are more socialist than anyone, but I think that, you know, it's no harm for the big man to look after the small man. We're all in this world together, you know, we'll all go out together. Yeah. So it's all about helping each other.
Yeah. Would you be happy, like, if you don't form the government, would you be happy to be in opposition?
Well, I think that we look back over the last 20 years, we had a very poor opposition. Now, our main goal is to be in power. And to do that, we know we have to get over 14 or 15 seats to do that in the thing. But we believe that we can be a common sense. Now, we don't know after the election whether Fine Gael are going to join with Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin. You know, that could be the alternative.
Yeah.
But is Sinn Féin going to join with Fianna Fáil? Is that it? Like, you know, there's going to be a lot of different makeups to make a government. But we are there to serve with whoever the people vote for. And we intend to do a deal to secure, and one of our priorities will be for a senior minister for the Northwest.
Okay.
We want to ensure that, you know, we are a region, they call it lagging, but we've been neglected. For the last 20 years, we are a region that, with 19% of the population, have only received 10% of the capital funding. Like, our infrastructure here in the Northwest is crumbling.
Why do you think we keep getting forgotten about?
It's because, as I said, those politicians that we send to Europe and that goes to Dublin, the talk the talk, but don't deliver.
Yeah.
We haven't got delivery, and that's what we want to do. We want to spread the plate even. We want to make sure that delivery comes to the Northwest, and that is a priority. And I spoke with Michael Fitzmaurice on a number of occasions about this, and we are at one. We do need a senior minister at cabinet table, and that doesn't have to be an independent Ireland minister. It can be a Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin.
Okay.
So as long as that position is created to secure a senior minister at the table to deliver for the major projects that we need, such as the N17, such as the Sligo-Galway train, such as the bypass in Clarke and Shannon, and the road, like if you look at the road out of Sligo to Donegal, the road to Enniskillen, the road to Ballina, these are all infrastructure developments that are crumbling. They're not fit for purpose. You know, we have an 80-mile speed limit from Clooney to Charlestown because the road is so dangerous, and the local people there are taking their lives in their hands on a daily basis. And the problem is with that road and the infrastructure we have, it is holding up. Like, can I ask you a question? When have you heard of a job announcement in the Northwest of 50 people, 50 new jobs or 100 new jobs in the last 20 years? You haven't.
Right.
And this is because our infrastructure isn't fit for purpose. And the industrialists that have come from America and Europe, and I've been all over those places and spoke to them, and they just said that we haven't got the infrastructure, we haven't got the roads, and we haven't got the housing, so we can't go there. Yeah. So, for example, 1,000 jobs was created in Loughrea last week because beside Galway City on a trail line.
Okay, God, 1,000 jobs, Sligo would be, or the Northwest would be insane.
Why not?
I know,
like,
we just said keep being forgotten. I look at something that frustrates myself as just a person, you know, on the ground there. It's like,
but the attitude of the politicians, they haven't enough ambition. If I looked at a video of Monsignor Horden delivered in Knock Airport. He was standing on the top of O'Boggle Hill and he said, "Here's another ray coming. Don't tell anyone we're building an airport." There was no one supporting him. Now, he did get support from the Harringtons and from Haughey and different people, and he delivered it. And look at what's there today. Such an asset for the Northwest. But look at the road to it from here, from Sligo.
And you look at all the projects, they're building 2 motorways in some counties, and we're still waiting.
We're still waiting. And it's not fair that the Northwest has been serviced by its politicians, and nobody else can be blamed, only the politicians.
That has to be it. I mean, you sound like someone that's been looking in as well, getting really frustrated at what's going on for years, so they're not delivering.
I have actually absolutely fire in my belly to do this job. I get emotional about it sometimes because I don't think it's fair that this fantastic area of Sligo, Donegal and Leitrim are left like this. I think it's completely wrong, and it's completely wrong by the governments to do that. You know, I think that we need our investment and we should be prioritised to get it. We can't have what's happening in Dublin and then 50 and our young people. I told a story there about, my own local church. 12 people was christened in it last year. 6 of those came from Dublin with children that was born in the parish. So you see, it's a drain. We've seen all the schools closing, we've seen the shops closing, the pubs closing, and that's because we haven't got our fair share of investment, and that has to stop.
And I suppose, like, we've had all the politicians, as you said, in your opinion, they haven't really fought the case enough. But as Independent Ireland, like, how many seats are you hoping to get? Like, you know, if people don't know much about the party, what's different to any other? There's other independent groups as well, as far as I'm aware.
There is, yeah.
How do you differ? And, like, what's your ambition with seats to go? As you said earlier on, you kind of need to have a number of seats to have a speaking power, to actually have a bargaining power. So what's the goal?
7 seats will give us speaking rights in the Dáil. Okay. But we're more ambitious than that. We think we can achieve between 14 and 20 seats. I think we'll have a candidate in every constituency,
Okay.
and they're still being announced. And I think that it's good. And I think that generally the public are looking for a new alternative, especially here in the Northwest, because they've been let down so bad and they've been forgotten so badly.
Yeah.
And for example, if the Sligo, Leitrim and Donegal people don't elect me, and they elect the same people they elected at every other election, well, then that's what they deserve. We deserve to stay as we are, with not the proper infrastructure and not the proper delivery from government.
You're speaking about infrastructure there, and obviously there's lots of key topics. One of them being housing. I mean, every time I listen to budgets, someone comes out with a plan, 2020, 2040, 2030. Do you have a key plan of how you can actually physically deliver the housing to the Northwest?
Well, first of all, can I tell you about my experience in construction? I'm 30 years involved in the construction business, working with construction companies. Now, I have no interest in people that are hoarding land or developers. They're not my cup of tea at all. But I know we have a lot of very genuine construction companies here in Sligo, and I've been working with them over the last 15 or 20 years to ensure that we got the delivery of houses. And in Sligo, we have a number of projects. We have about 700 houses under construction at the moment, and I would be involved with a good few of those.
Through your role in the council, obviously.
Through the role, before I became Clarke of the council, I met with a property owner that was in construction, and I approached him, and I asked him would he be interested in doing a turnkey development for the council for 80 houses, and that's open now, and in Seaville there in Sligo on the Sea Road, and then the tannery above on the top of Cairns Hill. That was a very controversial site. When the construction company came to me in relation to that, there was it wasn't zoned for housing. So I advised them that we had to go for what they call a material contravention. So in contrary to the development plan, that this site should get planning.
Okay.
Those houses are under construction now, and there's 50 or 60 people working on site, and it's great to see the great buzz.
I know, you can see the vans around and the shops around. And that's the secondary income to a town, is when all these people come in and stay and whatever. So it's interesting to know, because you go, the councillors, sure, how they bring in houses. So that's what the kind of stuff you are doing is getting in, doing the hustle, getting everything lined up and getting it right and get it moving.
I have been involved in building houses in Drummer West and Eastkey and Ballymote and Tubbercurry over the last 10 or 12 years. And the biggest challenge, would you believe, it's not money. The biggest challenge is skilled labour for the construction business. And I have a cousin in Australia, and he has 70 workers in his company in Australia, and they don't want to come home.
All right. So what can you do to make the houses appear? You know what I mean? Like, if we don't have the skilled labour, and you said money isn't the problem, but what's the key problem in your opinion?
We have to get a genuine situation where we can attract Irish people back home to build their houses. And I can tell you a story about that. I was involved with an individual that was looking for a job. He left Sligo, and he married a Galway girl, and they went to Australia. They bought a house in Australia. He was an electrician. He was flying it out there. But he decided, and I spoke to him, he decided that he would come home if there was a job. So I arranged a job with him with a local construction company as an electrician, starting on 60,000 a year. So he decided he'd sell his house in Australia. His wife was a nurse, and they'd move back. So they moved back. He started the next day with a 60,000 a year job, went to the bank. Oh no, we need 12 months bank statements here, and we need your Irish revenue statement of your affairs before we can consider you for a loan. So he came back here, and he had 100,000 euros for a deposit on his house when he came back, flew in with his 4 kids. And he still hasn't got his loan, and that's 12 months later. And then I said I tried to get him a loan in the council. But you can't get the loan for the council because you already own the house and you sold it. So he wouldn't be considered a first-time buyer, and he couldn't get the loan.
So is the system like a mess at the moment? Would you say?
What's happening in this country, that one department of government isn't talking to the other, and they're not gelled. So there's no common sense, and that's what our policy will be. Yeah. If we're going to look to bring home this skilled labour, we have to ensure that the facilities are available for them and the support is there. And it's the same, with the health. Like I suppose the most iconic building to Sligo, Leitrim and Donegal would be the Sligo University Hospital. And like that is a fantastic building, or was a fantastic building. But when I speak to doctors there, they tell me that they would improve their productivity by 10% if they had the right equipment and if their facilities was up to standard. But that hospital, I'm sad to say, is starting to fall apart up there, and they're not able to deliver the health services and get into the waiting list because of that. And we see that our nurses, when they qualify, they leave the country. So we need to put some system in place that will finance them to stay in Ireland, make sure they have accommodation, where there's going to be a debt-free loan, that if they work for 5 or 6 years, some incentive to ensure that we keep our nurses here in Ireland, because they're the backbone of the health system.
Well, I like the sound of, from the housing. It's not just like we'll build 10,000 houses. It's like more sense. You seem to say that there's a system needs to be laid down to bring the skill, but bring Irish people back home that are abroad who maybe don't want to be there. And the same with the nurses. It's like make the incentives good enough that they actually stay here first.
Absolutely.
And the rest will follow through. And then obviously there's other issues I'm sure, but like, why aren't the builders building? Is it VAT issues? Is it grants issues? What's stopping builders at the moment?
Well, I have delivered my third county development plan, and 10 years ago, I would be the go-to person for the construction companies in Sligo to come in and talk to me, how will they get planning permission? Why isn't my land zoned? But thankfully, now that I have councillors, 3 years ago, I proposed that Sligo County Council will set up a councillors planning group. And we examined all aspects of the county development plan. And I have councillors like Thomas Walsh now, and Councillor Paul Taylor, and Councillor Gilroy, as up to date as I was, and they were led out on the development plan, and it was a lot easier for me to do. And we have delivered just now a fantastic development plan. We have zoned 73 hectares of land, which will be available to builders now to build land. Okay. So hopefully that the minister will sign off on that, and that
goes to the next level. Then
we have the area now available, and if we could get our roads done, if we get our train done, get our houses built, then we have 80 acres there just off the central route into Sligo that is ready for IDA greenfield sites. And we have everything we need. We have everything only to deliver capital funding.
Okay.
And we will deliver, and I have been delivering, and the N4, I worked on that. The N59, part of that is done, and I delivered that. And the Midlock route and the Western Distributor Road, I actually met with the ministers and the council officials to get that over the line with a council official called Tom Gilfeather that's now retired. Yeah. But we got that done, and it's only I have the experience of delivery.
Yeah, that's a lot of these projects. Is do I know what I'm actually talking about and how to get it done?
I have the experience, but we need to keep people into the Dáil, on the floor of the Dáil, that has experience and has a track record of delivery. And I believe I have that.
Yeah.
So what I need to do is get my message out to every area to ensure I do that, because the general public vote for politicians for various reasons. Yeah. If I got a medical card or something like that, or they spoke on the Dáil about something.
Yeah. But I knew their family.
I knew their family. Okay. But if they take this election seriously and look at the track record of the TDs that we have represented at the moment, we need experience, we need delivery. And I look at those grants that comes around the area in relation to, we'll say, which is fantastic. There's a Cool Father got 440,000 to buy an old pub and to do it up. But the 100 top earners in the parish of Cool Father pays 3 million a year in tax. Do you know? So between their tax bill and their USE charges and their tax on commodities, they pay 3 million. The 100 top, so that the money doesn't come back to rural areas that they're entitled to. Yeah. And then they say, "Oh, this great TD got this for us," but the fact of the matter is, we're only getting flower pot money.
Yeah. Just want to go back to the hospital there. You mentioned it earlier on about the cancer service is gone. Like, is that ever going to come back? Why can't we get it back? I even read recently in one of the local papers, people going down on the bus on the bad, slow road you've already mentioned.
Yeah.
No toilets in the bus. So like, not only have we no service up here, we're actually treating our people like third-class citizens. Something really annoys me, to be honest. But like, we hear politicians that come into our door and like, well, can we ever get the cancer services? What do we need to do that?
I think what we need is the massive population. So get our infrastructure right.
Okay.
Get our houses built. Get our jobs coming to Sligo.
Yeah.
Then the population grows, our economy grows, and then we are a mass of population that can deliver those centre of excellence that are a good idea and are a good job and do deliver best health. But I talk to people that was in Galway and they say, well, I'm glad that we have a centre of excellence, but I'd love it to be in Sligo.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for it not to be in Sligo other than we haven't got the massive population. But there's good things happening in Sligo General Hospital at the minute. We have our new consultants back and we have our the operations on our one-day hip operations turnaround. Okay. But there is good things. People want to come to Sligo for the quality of life to work.
Yeah.
So it's, as I said earlier, it's all about giving those doctors and nurses the equipment and the facilities to deliver, and they will reduce the waiting time list then, and they're anxious to do that.
Yeah. Now, moving on to tourism, small and medium businesses. Obviously, it's another huge part of the economy. And like, what are we, again, I think it's probably going to go back to similar things again with, VAT rates, infrastructure, what's Independent Ireland's focus on that to get this area, helped?
Well, I genuinely believe that what we need here in the Northwest is a flagship project. Like we see the Titanic in Belfast, we see various things. But I have travelled a lot of Europe with the council, looking at tourism and greenways and all that. And the Gutenberg, I think, is in Spain. The Guggenheim, is that what it's called?
Guggenheim, is it?
Guggenheim, the Guggenheim. That's a fantastic facility and it's a flagship one. It's some place that you go in and you spend your day in it because it take a day to look at everything in it.
Yeah.
And like we have a lot of fantastic projects here in the Northwest, such as the Armada project. Eddie O'Gorman there in Grange. Like we have the guns in Dublin.
What are they doing there?
What are they doing there? and if that was a project as part of a flagship project, you could have one section of it for the Armada. You could have another section of it for the Yeats, the history Yeats. You could have another one on the famine or the foundation of the state. There's so much, if you had the building at the right location, there's so much you could put into it that it would be a flagship and people would travel from all over the world to come to it. So that actually will come in time too, following on from the infrastructure, following on from the housing, following on from the hospital, and then you'll have tourism projects of that scale. And that's what's needed.
I mean, I suppose I kind of get the feeling there's no point lying to people saying, give us a year or 2 years. I presume you just want to set the wheels moving in the right motion to get everything going right. So it could be 5, 10 years, but at least you go, we need to start moving the groundworks now.
Absolutely. Look, in politics, to get anything done, 3 years is a very short time. You're talking about 10 years to get projects really done. For example, we'll say the Greenway from Enniskillen to Collooney. So it's 10 years ago this week since myself and Councillor Sean McDermott met with a UUP councillor in Councillor Alex Beard. And we met with him in relation to the Greenway from Enniskillen to Collooney. And then we got to meet Arlene Foster. And then from that, we got Shane Ross, the minister at the time, dancing with Arlene Foster in Glenfarne. But that was the foundation of that. And that's 10 years ago. And it was in the programme of government for the Northern Ireland and the Irish government because of that communication that myself and Sean McDermott started off on a Irish Central Border Region network that we were involved in, where we meet once a month with unionists and Sinn Féin from the north and the same from politicians from the south.
That's a key thing to help the Northwest develop.
Yeah, well, it was a communication, and then we had an executive on that board that would facilitate those meetings. But like that's the reason why I'm explaining this to you is because that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we're 5 years away, still 5 years away from that being completed. I think we're 2 years away from it being announced, and the route being selected. So we're another 5 years. So it's a 15-year project.
Yeah.
That is. So what I'm talking about, a flagship for, is another 15-year project.
Yeah, but we have to get it on the table soon.
Well, we have to get it started.
And speaking of routes and everything, the whole Greenway train line, this, as an outsider looking in going, can you explain why can't we have both?
Well, we will have both. And
Okay.
we'll actually have two greenways. From Clooney to Claremorris. We'll have two.
Right, okay. You're very confident in that now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. Another motion that I put down a number of years ago was every new road that was done by the TII in the Northwest would have alongside it a cycling and walkway.
Okay.
So very simple to improve. So when the new N17 is done, there will be a greenway alongside it. Okay. Absolutely guaranteed. Wrote into legislation. Okay. Delivered.
And will there be a train line beside it?
The train line, we know now the activity on the trains have tripled in the last 10 years. So, the amount of people that are using the trains is really, really on. If you said to me 10 years ago that the Sligo Galway train was non-runner, I'd say you're right. Put the greenway on it. But now I believe, and what amazes me about the Clooney to Charlestown Claremorris railway line is that the politicians in Limerick, in Galway, Mayo and Donegal are really screaming for this line to be opened up. And you can know why, because of the students' exchanges between Sligo and Galway, the hospitals between Sligo and Galway, and the whole Wild Atlantic Way. Like, it's a no-brainer to get the train back. Now, there is a bit of friction between the Greenway and the trainway, but there should be no friction, because even if, and unfortunately the TII is in control of the greenways, and they have been mandated to secure the greenway on the train line, and to have a route selection process, and of course they're going to come back and say the best route is on the train line. Yeah. And so they will deliver that, and they'll spend about 10 million on the greenway. But I'm saying to the people on the train, don't worry about that, because that's only cleaning the route for the train.
Yeah.
And it's securing the route for the train. And we'll still have a greenway along the N70 when that's developed. And it's a very simple diversion then. So it's not complicated or rock science. It's there, only to get it delivered.
Yeah. So if our infrastructure gets improved, we get more tourism projects, our small and medium businesses are going to be now, hopefully getting on the up as well. But at the moment, do you think they're being supported enough by our government?
No, absolutely not. I think that, a good friend of mine there in Culani, his butcher shop closed, and then Bundoran, another butcher shop closed this evening. And, I'm in the pub business and in the food business as well. And we have two pubs. We have one in Clarke and Shannon. We have the Anchorage, and we have the Still Bear in Drumore West. So I have a pub in Leitrim in Sligo.
Okay.
Our family does. So, there's no doubt about it that the big problem for those type of businesses and restaurants and pubs is that, we have no disposable income in the state. Like, in 2016, the state took 50 billion out of our pockets in taxation.
Okay.
In 2024, they took 97 billion out of our pockets in taxation.
Okay, so it's sucking it out of towns.
The system that the state has created is that we'll give you enough to survive, but you'll get no more. Okay. And people haven't got disposable income to go into that shop, to have that coffee, to have that meal, to have a pint. Yeah. So that money isn't there. And these young families are stretched to the limit in relation to trying to childcare, 2 jobs, pay the mortgage. That, in my father's time, there was no mortgages. You know what I mean? And they had disposable income. They could go to the pint for a pub and do all that. But now there's no disposable income, and the state has created that system that people don't have disposable income.
And I suppose you see the older generation, they've created their livelihood, they've created family and wealth, but now they're seeing their families not being able to live.
Our older people, they worked so hard, and they have built the 5th richest economy in the world. And yet to see their kids, they have educated them and their grandchildren, and they've reared them, and they've helped their children to rear their grandchildren, and they still can't get themselves on the property market to buy a house. Yeah. So it's very hard on the older people to see how this state has not use their money in good effect.
Wisely, yeah. And does Independent Ireland have any specific kind of policy on helping small and medium business? Like, are you going for the VAT rate, whatever? Is there certain things you're really hitting home with?
I think that the government made an awful decision this week not to give the 9% to the hospitality sector.
Okay.
I think, because of the fact that, they hit them twice. The raised the 9% and raised the minimum wage. And I was talking to a supermarket owner, and he said it was 100,000 a year extra that he'd have to pay, and he'd have to pass that on to the people that were coming in and buying the food.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy decision not to give the 9%. That would keep so many of those little shops and pubs and restaurants open.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they've done that. And Independent Ireland will be focused on that if we get into power.
Okay. And I suppose moving on things more closer to home, agriculture, obviously that in depth. It's obviously the backbone of a lot of the Northwest region, the area you're going to be, hopefully, if you say so in your own behalf, representing. Like what are the key kind of industries in the Northwest regards to agriculture that need support?
Well, first of all, the derogation in relation to the environment, it doesn't make sense to me because we have the most fertile land in the world. The green grass will grow. Try to stop it. It can't be stopped. It'll grow. And we have the best climate in the world for animals to live. We've, like, if you go to the equator, Spain, Italy, you're talking about crazy temperatures. You're talking about flies and maggots and everything attacking the animals. And we're asked to cut down our national herd. And that doesn't make sense for food security for Europe. So we believe that we should get a full derogation. We believe that we produce the best milk in the world. The Chinese call it liquid gold, and it's stored out there in Dowds and Gurchin. And that there's about 20 million of it there ready to go wherever shipped to. And the markets are mad to get it. They're just mad to get it. And for us to reduce that by 25% is crazy, especially when other countries, their climate is getting so hot that the fertile land is getting burned up and the crops are failing. So because of climate change, there's no one denying climate change, but for Ireland to be penalised in any way because we have natural weather to livestock, and the suckler cow is probably the most important animal in the Northwest because it produces the stores for the East Coast and the weanlings for stores as well, and all those animals are sold through cattle marts,
and they're important part of the culture and the community. Well, the local marts.
The cattle mart is a social entity, and first of all, farmers meet there. There's no pubs now, so they go there and they discuss their business and they have maybe a cup of tea or whatever. But every penny that goes through a cattle mart goes directly back into the local economy, and those farmers, when they're in town, they go to the pub shop, they go to the hairdressers, they go
keep it within the community,
local. It's the most local re-injection of money that you can find is the farmers' money, because they're not going to travel to Dublin, they're not going to Cork, they're not going on holidays. They're spending their money local, and they're spending in co-ops, and everybody enjoys that economy because of what the farmer does for the economy.
And what is it that's putting people out of farming? Is young people running away from it? Is the system difficult? What would Independent Ireland, we keep going back to this, how would you kind of keep people in the farming industry?
There's a big issue in relation to inheritance. I think the inheritance tax is at over 400,000 is at 33%. I mean, there's very few farms that's valued that low now. If you take 100 acres with a house on it, you're talking about 2 million.
Okay, so if the father or whatever mother passes that on to one of the children, before they can take ownership, they have to pay.
Yeah, and
so basically sell off some of the land, or get some mega loan.
What they have to do is they'll sell it, or they'll lease it for 6 years, and the money will guaranteed to pay the tax. But it's wrong that we'll say if you see a farmer that has built up his farm for 40 or 50 years and he wants to give it to his son, his daughter, or his nephew, whatever the situation, because there's lots of farmers bachelors. Yeah. And that farm has to be sold, that the government would take 33% of that,
for no particular reason. But about housing, would you kind of differentiate the two? If you were in charge right now, how would you solve that simple issue?
I genuinely believe that family wealth should cascade down tax-free, because they have already paid their taxes on their income.
Okay.
So, and if they build up an asset instead of spending it, why shouldn't they be able to hand it on to their next generation?
Yeah.
I'm tax-free. I don't see why. I know you'll have costs, solicitors' costs and registration tax, but inheritance tax, in my view, has destroyed the agricultural industry because young farmers just don't want to be paying, can't afford to pay.
Well, I mean, only when you give the example, it kind of enlightened me too, because obviously I don't live in that sphere.
Yes.
That's mad, like, you know.
That's mad.
So, yeah, you wouldn't think of that, like, and then we wonder why aren't the farmers going into it.
You
Like,
see,
sure.
the problem with that situation, you might, in the total economy, 1 or 2% of the people of the state of the county might have to deal with that in a particular year. So they have no political clout, you know, because what about them? We'll take the tax. We need it.
Yeah. So it keeps the coffers full for other projects, and maybe not in the Northwest, unfortunately.
That's
you know, at the
right.
time. So I know in rural Ireland, safety, feeling safe and comfortable in your house, and I know there was a very unfortunate incident out your own area recently. So what's going wrong? Why is it becoming less and less safe for people living in rural Ireland?
Well, we were told that the big issue in rural Ireland is that those marauding gangs that come from cities because they're trying to feed a drug debt or whatever. That's what we're being told. Now, you mentioned about my good friend Tom Nyland that now we know was murdered. And that's before the courts and we can't say much about it. But I sat down with Tom's first cousin, Michael Walsh, and his wife, Marie, and I asked them, what do you think could we do to ensure that the likes of Tom wouldn't be in that situation again? And they recommended, and we talked about it, that every business premises in County Sligo would get a camera that would be on the infrastructure, on the main roads, that would be number plate recognise it.
Okay.
And we'd have a system that, because when a guard goes to a place, if there's a crime, they'll go to the local business and they'll say, have you any footage?
So this will put that step out. It'll be already there. Like.
Yeah, it'll be there and it'll be very low money and, it'll be a great thing. Now, Tom Nyland was an absolutely gentleman, and why it's so hard on us as a community to deal with his death is because he was the type of man, he was a gentle giant and the type of a man that always helped you and was always good company, and he was a very shy man and he'd mind his own business. He'd never talk about anybody. So for a man as good as that to lose his life over 500 or 600 euros,
it just stings
crazy.
More, I'd say,
yeah.
And as you said, there's just things that should be done, but I presume there's just less and less Garda numbers. Am I right in that?
But you see, the problem with the Garda numbers, and I talk to guards as well, and it's a badly paid job now.
Yeah.
You know, a young guard going into the guards, whether it's Dublin or they're always brought away to the city. I think that the numbers here in Sligo Leitrim are going down on a yearly basis, because I think we got one new guard this time and 6 retired. But and you've never been told that either. But that's what's happening. The numbers are going down and down. But if you think of a young guard, like 25 years ago, if you got into the guards, you had a good job. Yeah. You could say you were going to buy a house. You could say that you're set up for life. But the fact about the guards are leaving the guards now and going to Australia to the guards.
Yeah.
And they're not, and it's a very, very difficult job. I mean, the abuse that some of the guards has to take.
Well, I mean, I think with the smartphone era now, it's even becoming more and more.
It is, and people are harder handled, and it's. I wouldn't like to be a guard now. I tell you, it's a job I wouldn't do because it's a dangerous job, and it's.
But I suppose the thing is, as you said, we can all just say we're going to improve Garda numbers. That's kind of like a throwaway remark. But when you have an idea like the camera system,
that's right.
But like, okay, someone said, but that'll cost us. Like, well, we see enough projects in Ireland where money's thrown away.
Absolutely,
this is actually could save someone's life, some of their livelihood being taken, or damage their property, or just the fright someone gets when someone comes near their house. So that affects you for life.
I spoke to a guard, John McGuinness, that was investigating Tom Nyland's case. And he told me that he was 3 days doing nothing else, only looking at footage. But these smart cameras, you'd be able to pin it into the day
straight away, and
it'd save time. And it goes back to what I talked about the doctors. If they have the right equipment, they're able to have a better throughput, better work rate. And I think that we are going into a smarter economy. And with AI and everything like this, we should use every opportunity to ensure that our civil servants are getting all the equipment they need, and especially
whether it's frontline health staff, firefighters, Gardaí,
Yeah.
they're all kind of, and even I know the firefighters had their own issues there recently as well. So I suppose it seems to be going across the board. But again, we talked about the slow moving wheels. Let's start moving them the right way. It obviously seems to be a goal of yours, but tangible short term projects to go, let's get our people back from Australia. Let's do the camera system for safety. Let's change the inheritance. So I kind of like that angle that there's a few plausible things that if I don't know nothing about politics, I don't know nothing about the way politics works, maybe people can go, oh yeah, that makes sense.
But if you look at Sligo General Hospital, for example, and I know you asked me about that, but every year 40,000 people go through accident and emergency. And in the hospital itself, we've only 360 beds. So do you see the ratio?
Yeah.
So like 40,000 for 360, and 60 of those beds are held in relation to, there's no step-down beds. So if there's a man that's sick or a woman that's sick and he needs a step-down bed, they're not there.
Yeah.
So they have to hold the bed up. And someone that comes into an accident emergency that really needs a bed, there's no bed for them.
And like literally no bed.
Literally no bed. And that's why they're on trolleys. And that's why they're 14 and 15 hours in the accident emergency. So until they can get a bed. And they're going then trying to put someone out of a bed to get the bed.
Yeah. Like someone that maybe doesn't need to be going home that quick, maybe. Or
Sligo General Hospital to work properly with the current throughput would need 1,000 beds.
Okay. But even you can imagine morale of the staff. Like I know they go through their praises, the staff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just keeps coming back to, we keep being forgotten.
The staff told me what we're at here is we're firefighting. That's what in the hospital, they're firefighting. They're not able to the pressure that's on them and the mental anguish that's on them because they want to look after the patients, but they haven't got the system, they haven't got the equipment, and they haven't got the proper hospital in place. So
and a lot of their friends and colleagues are gone because it's not worth staying here. Like
absolutely,
yeah. And I've met people and they said I wouldn't stay. It's too much. It's too much. It's not pleasant to live in or work in, and they have to go home and have a life too.
They do.
Yeah, it all leads in. So Michael, before we let you go, if I was trying to convince someone to vote for you now, what would you tell them?
Well, I'm part of a team in Independent Ireland with Michael Fitzmaurice and Ciara Maloney MEP, and we want to get into Dáil Éireann to deliver our policies. I'm a man with a good track record in delivery. I have the experience in agriculture, experience in construction, and the experience in tourism and community affairs. And I know what I'm talking about. And if I get into Dáil Éireann, I will deliver for the Northwest.
Very good. Well, I like what I've heard so far, Ms. Michael. The best of luck in the election. Thanks for supporting our project here, asking us to come in and help you record your story. So it's been great to get the support. Other politicians are very welcome to come in and do the same as well. We will talk to you maybe after the election. Hopefully it all goes well for you. The very best of luck. I know it's not an easy job you have coming in the upcoming few weeks. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So that was Councillor Michael Clarke, who's running in the upcoming general election for Independent Ireland. Thanks to everyone behind the desk there, Brian and all the team, for helping us produce this. And we'll see you all again next time.
The Sligo Show is produced by Pixel Productions and hosted by Brendan Tierney. If you need video for your business or live event or would like to appear on the show, send us a message today.